Rhythm Changes is partnered with the Inlet Music Series in Port Moody. This is my local concert series, and the season is wrapping up. I've had a great time every time we have a monthly concert interviewing an artist who is part of the collection of fine musicians that we're grateful to bring to the stage here. Now, I'm going to stay involved in this concert series in its next season, but I won't be doing these anymore. So I'm signing off from this recurring segment with a wonderful time here where I am interviewing one half of one of my very favorite Canadian folk music projects influenced by country, blues, folk traditions. That's Pharis and Jason Romero. They're playing on April 25th. And so with me, I have Pharis Romero. Thank you for joining me, Pharis.
Hi, Will. It's a treat to be here.
It's lovely to see you. How are you doing in that wonderful homey location that is behind you?
It's very homey. I'm very well. This is my office. So behind me is a collection of ephemera from over the years of touring and raising kids and making art and all those things that you end up with that you don't know where else to put other than on the wall of your office that you work in. So
I love it. I love it. Now, you and Jason are going to be joined by two musicians whom I've seen in different configurations as well at this Inlet show. So maybe we could talk a little bit about each of them and your history with them, which includes multiple of your records. So let's start with, on the violin, Trent Freeman.
Yeah, he is. So Trent is an incredible, I mean, he's a multi-instrumentalist, but he's mostly known for his work as a fiddler with the well-known Canadian string quartet, the Fretless. Originally from Vancouver Island, he's toured around all over the place. He's, Canadian Grand Masters champions, all those things. And we have the great luck of realizing that playing music with Trent just elevates the entire experience, because he's not only a great traditional style fiddle player, but he's also an incredible improviser, and he comes from a whole bunch of different musical backgrounds. So playing music with him is just a ton of fun. So he's played on our last few records, and we've toured a lot with him, and I love the element of both surprise and pulse and on the edge and improvisation that he brings to the music when we play with him. Yeah.
That's so great to look forward to. On the Inlet stage, we also have Patrick Metzger. He'll be joining you on bass, right?
Yep. Yeah, and Patrick, many of your listeners would be familiar with Patrick Metzger's work with Petunia and the Vipers and with a lot of other bands. Patrick has been a true road dog for a very long time now. And I think this is our fifth record that we are just about to release in June, that both Trent and Patrick are on. But I believe this is our fifth record that Patrick has made with us. And we've never really played with any other bass player except for him. He's magnificent, the pulse and the groove. And for me, the relationship as an acoustic guitar player with the bass player is essential, that we hear the groove sort of in the same place, because we all approach things, when people are dancing, they'll move in a different spot depending on the beat. And as rhythm instrumentalists primarily, that really becomes apparent when you hear the beat in a different spot than someone else who's also a rhythm instrumentalist with you in the same band. So Patrick and I, we're very copacetic that way. It's amazing playing music with him.
That's so cool. I play bass, and I've spent a lot of my formative gigs playing with guitarists, and one guitarist or one or two in particular. So yeah, I appreciate that relationship a lot.
Yeah, I do. A lot.
Yeah. So just to complete the picture then of the four of you who will be on that stage, let's just allude to, for anybody who hasn't listened to any of your records before, let's allude to Jason's role. I'm thinking in particular of Tell 'Em You Were Gold, which is your most current album. You said you have another one coming up, but he plays banjos all throughout that album in different tunings. And so because we have you here instead of both of you, can you just round it out by mentioning where he fits on stage among the four of you?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, the core of what we do is Jason and I, and, we started playing just as a duo, the two of us, and he would move back and forth between banjo and guitar and then vocals. And we have this lovely musical relationship where we're both very into old music. We both love things. We bonded over strange, scratchy old music. The scratchier the music, the better, where, the scratches are louder than the actual music itself. And just the core of what the community of folk, old time country, early music meant to people as people were disseminating this music throughout the country in the early part of the 1900s, 1920s, 1930s. That drew both of us in very deeply because of the uniqueness of it, the community-based aspect of it, the fact that like the further it gets from the kitchen, the weirder it gets. And that's one of Jason's great quote standbys when he's playing music is the further this music gets from the kitchen, the weirder it gets for him. So he has a very neat relationship with music because he is a banjo builder as well. So he was a banjo player first and then a banjo builder later. And so he builds all the instruments that he plays. So he has a very intimate relationship with the instruments he plays. So when he gets a sound in his head in a certain way that he wants to play, sometimes that requires him to go out to the shop and build a new instrument to make that sound come to life, which is pretty cool. And him and I, as far as musical on stage, yeah, he's playing guitar and banjo in multiple styles, claw hammer, 3-finger, bluegrass style, with and without picks, lots of different tunings depending on the approach that we have to the song. He really loves maximizing the impact of the instrument by bringing the most of the tone out of the instrument that he possibly can. And then he's a great singer. He didn't sing when him and I met originally in 2007. He wasn't much of a singer, and which is really surprising to me because he's a great singer. And him and I think partially because we spend so much time together. You know, we run a business, we have 2 kids, we live together, we're pretty much 24/7. So our natural cadences grow together, how we hear words and the pulse of words, but also the music that we love is really deeply in both of us. So I think that really contributes to us having this very familial sound without being related by blood. So anyways, that's a very long-winded answer.
That's so cool. I appreciate it. The last thing I would catch before we move on from just the look at what you guys will be like on the stage is you mentioned banjo in different styles. Now, I know a little bit about that. I've certainly never played a lot of banjo myself, but I've played around people who have. And I'm wondering if you would describe this as something that, I mean, unless it is just going to be spoken about to whatever extent between songs, is this something that you think somebody in the audience will be able to notice? Will they be able to see different things visually when he plays banjo in different styles? Or is this more of an internal thing that you would notice amongst yourselves but that we wouldn't?
Interesting question. So yeah, you can, if you're watching for it, you can notice that Jason will be retuning the instrument. And a lot of people get confused by that because they think that, you know, he's dealing with a banjo that's out of tune. Say he's constant, because banjos they're the butt of so many jokes, right? About being in tune and all those things. But to be realistic about it, he's actually insanely changing the tuning of the banjo on stage quickly in between songs, again, in order to maximize the tone and maximize the approach and how his fingers will roll over the strings to get the best approach for that particular song and the best sound. So, you know, we may play one song in C and he'll be in one banjo tuning, but the next song in C has a different vibe or a different pulse or a different approach, lyrically telling a different story. So a different C tuning might be better for that. So he'll actually be on the side retuning the banjo a little bit. So people can notice that. We also usually travel with 2 different banjos, sometimes 3, depending on the gigs. And so those will have different rim sizes, different strings, nylon strings, steel strings, sometimes gourd banjos, all of these different instruments giving very, very, very different tonal approaches, which for anyone who loves to geek out on musical instruments and geek out on tone, it's a feast for them. It's very, very cool.
So what about for you, Pharis? Are there considerations like that in your guitar playing or not as much?
No, not at all. I'm a one-horse girl. So I have a big-bodied guitar that I play, and that's what I play the entire time. And every once in a while, maybe I might go to like a drop D tuning, but almost rarely with that. So in a show when we're playing, it's me and Jason are at the core. We're singing and speaking and conveying the music, and Trent and Patrick are there supporting and uplifting and keeping that melody and that groove and just opening up the Uh, the soundscape. I'm really into soundscapes. I'm really into wall of sound and like how shifting all these things. I'm much less interested in a flashy solo and way more interested in what the groove and the pulse and the group of musicians are doing together.
That's so fascinating that you say wall of sound, because it's definitely not a term that I would associate with your musical style, where it's very kind of intimate and stripped down. It's funny.
Yeah, it is. And but it's, a wall of sound can mean a lot of different things. For some people, they may be imagining, the Grateful Dead with a wall of Marshall stacks along the back, and that's somebody's wall of sound. But for me, a wall of sound is where all the musicians are together. If there's a solo or if there's a melodic line, that everyone's actually playing that melodic line together, and that the groove instruments, the rhythmic instruments, are all sitting in that same groove. And the idea is that everyone's kind of surfing along together on the same ride. That's my internal wall of sound when I think of it.
That's cool. Yeah, I come from educationally in music, like a jazz background, and there's a very similar thing where we would talk about being in the pocket.
Yeah, that's exactly the same term. Yeah, it's in the pocket, but it means different things to different people and in different forms of music. For if you're more interested in country music or in bluegrass music and old time, they all have a different way of approaching it. Old time music, which is where Jason and I sort of, we live in old bluegrass, and old time was much of our foundations. There's very few solos. That doesn't really happen. It's the same tune over and over and over and over and over again. And melodically, it's the same thing over and over and over again, but it's all about the pulse. It's music designed for dancing and community music. Bluegrass music may be more interested in solos and moving forward and more improvisation, that crossover into the jazz world that was happening with early bluegrass music, moving out of blues and out of old time. And then country music would be maybe more lyrically oriented sometimes. I'm not going to profess to like spout the exact definitions of any of those things, because I think that's a silly thing to do. But just as a generalization, each of these things. So we're drawing our influences from all of those things. Jason's an incredible soloist, but a lot of the time he's very happy just playing the melody. There's these funny phrases that are like, there's no money above the 7th fret. Play the melody. Play the melody. There's no money above the 7th fret. Like there's all these silly little clips, right, with this old music that we're playing. So
I think I first heard you at the 2018 Mission Folk Music Festival.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
one of the loveliest festivals.
I love that festival. I've played that festival multiple times with multiple different bands, and have always felt like it's what I want a folk festival to feel like, the Mission Festival, because it's still intimate. It doesn't feel like this raging thing with multiple stages competing for sounds and all this stuff. Like, it's just very community, very family oriented, and great music. They always do an amazing job of curating it.
Yeah. Now, in the intervening years, I'm sure have been a lot of times where you've been playing a lot and being on the road a lot, and times where you haven't. So is there anything about that shifting lifestyle that you would want to talk about in terms of where you're at now and where you've been?
Yeah, I mean, it's shifted so much. So we have 2 kids, which we didn't have 2 kids when we first started touring pretty actively. So our kids have always been along for the road. Our daughter, who was born in 2013, her first tour was at 3 months old in Alberta in February. It was a bad idea, but I just love playing music. And so I was like, no, let's go out and do this. It was pretty intense. Our son was born in 2016. He turned 3 in the Netherlands. We've brought these kids all over the world, constantly touring with them, music camps, festivals, gigs, all of these things. And as, we've done it sometimes where it's been nonstop and only music, and it's very challenging. And it's a lot, playing music is this delightful thing, but the nuts and bolts of being on tour are difficult. And when you wake up at 6 a.m. with 2 kids in a hotel in the middle of a food desert and there's no food, and you're like, geez. So, I have tremendous mom bags of food and all the things, and you're on other people's schedules with sound checks and shows and all those things, and kids don't always vibe with tight schedules like that. So it has its own challenges. But bringing kids on the road was never an option for us. It was always, of course, that's what we're going to do if we're continuing to be on the road playing music. So, if you would have seen us in 2018 at Mission, the next year we were all over the world playing music, teaching, and at festivals every weekend for probably 6 months. And then we were like, okay, maybe this is a little harder than we want it to be. So the neat thing for us is that we can we can make banjos. We do make banjos as well. Jason made banjos before he was a professional musician. And so we have multiple different ways of interacting with our craft, essentially. So it's shifted, and as the kids get older, we're on the road less, no less loving playing music. It's just the logistics and just these times in life. So.
Yeah. And for this upcoming record, like if I look back, your previous 3 records, Tell 'Em You Were Gold, Bet on Love, Sweet Old Religion, those are the ones where John Ram of Afterlife Studios, he came up and recorded them with you in your home space, right?
Yep. John's come up and set up a mobile studio here in Horsefly. So for a few years, 2 years it was in, or 2 records, I should say, it was in the banjo shop. So we would clean the banjo shop, wash the walls, dust it like crazy, because you've got all these amazing old ribbon mics and all these things that he brings up that we can't get dust on, right? Because they're magnetic. So you can imagine a woodworking shop turned into a recording studio. What a crazy thing that was to do. And then we managed to finish our old barn that we have here on the property, which is this beautiful old barn insulated with sawdust. We put a new roof on. We gutted. We put a lot of labor and a lot of time and love into that thing. And my dream since the moment we moved here in 2010 was to turn it into a country music dance hall and concert hall and recording venue. And that's what we do with it now. So we made Tell 'Em You Were Gold in the barn. And it's a very cool experience with John, because he shows up with all this incredible gear, and we record in the same way that we play music. We sit close to each other. There's no baffling. There's no headphones. We sit and we play music. So we're all listening to each other acoustically. So yes, we have microphones in front of us, and that's what John's doing, is he is optimizing the sounds and these incredibly beautiful old mics that he's bringing in. But sitting in a space like the barn, you've got the wood stove in the back, you got rain coming down, all those things you can hear on the records, because we're not looking for a pristine thing. We're looking for a real life musical experience, which is what drives us. And for the music, I have the most fun when I'm just playing music with people. We've tried all of these things where we've, tracked everything separately, had isolation, overdubbed vocals, all these things. And I personally feel like the performance is never as good as it is when you're just playing with people. So that requires a certain amount of skill so that you can do it all at once, because tracking is lovely, because then you can just overdub if you make mistakes, and the people can take lots of stabs at it and do all of that. So that feels wonderful, and then you'll get a very pristine track sound wise. But for me, the experience of playing music together is I want it to be as honest and as transparent as it can be, that this is really us. This is what we're doing. And so John comes up, and his skill level is unbelievable when it comes to recording. So he can just facilitate that whole experience, making that as good as it possibly can be too, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So for the new record, there's not going to be anything for the people here on April 25th yet, right? We're going to have to watch.
No. So yeah, we won't have, I don't think, well, there's a chance we'll have record. There's a chance. I can't, how the world rolls right now. We can't really guarantee anything. But what's cool is we made the record last October, and a lot of these songs we haven't really played live in front of people before. We've just sat as a group. So a lot of these songs are brand new for us, and I'm so excited to play this new music with Trent and Patrick and bring these stories out. My songwriting tap just turned on the last few years, and I haven't been able to turn it off. So that's been a very cool experience. So there may be different, it's a little bit more personal songwriting and a little bit more intimate, and the stories are a little, sad and quirky and funny, and things like phone calls with the old people in our lives? And what if this is the last time I speak to them on the phone? And then, a huge blowout with family members. And one song I wrote when I was camping the backcountry last year with my daughter, we were on a mother-daughter backcountry trip, and I couldn't sleep. And all of a sudden at 1 a.m., a song popped into my head, and I put down a voice memo of it. And then that turned into one of the tracks on the record. So it's an intro. My friend the next morning was like, "Were you singing last night in the tent?" I was like, yeah, I was singing. She was like, "I didn't know if that was an owl or that was you." There's a lot of really neat songs on this record that I'm really excited to bring out into the world and share with people.
Right on. We'll look forward to hearing that. So this is the thing that we can go out with here at whatever pace we want, where I just kind of went through each of the past 6 duo records and I just picked one track that I thought I could bring it up for whatever reason and just see if you had anything that you wanted to share about it. I think I'll go reverse chronological. So I'll start with Tell 'Em You Were Gold, because this track I think stands out to me as one that will have the kind of ensemble sound, because Trent and Patrick are playing on it. Sour Queen.
Oh, I love that you picked this track. Okay, so Sour Queen started when my son was trying to say sour cream, and he called it Sour Queen. And I just immediately, my songwriter's brain turned on, and I got really excited about it. And we sat in the barn, just Jason and I and Patrick playing it. And I was playing this gigantic, crazy 6-string gourd banjo. It's like a gourd banjitar that Jason had made. Like, you can barely hold the thing in your lap. And I'm going like that old, like Hot Six, like rhythm section, that tuk, 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 tuk. And then we finished recording it. We're like, you know what? So Trent was there, but we weren't planning to have him on the record on Tell 'Em You Were Gold. He was there with his partner Anandi, and they were making a documentary video about the making of the record. And then we played this tune, and we're like, oh my God, it needs fiddle. So then Trent came down, listened to us play it once. We did 3 takes. We took the 3rd take and put it on the record. And that's what you're listening to when you hear that, when you hear Sour Queen.
That's so great. Okay, continuing, maybe different vibes. Bet on Love, the title track.
Oh, I wrote that as a love letter to myself. That I had just finished a course in mindfulness and body integration and mindfulness body stress reduction. And I was fascinated by the reaction that my body was having to being a little more gentle with myself. So that was, and that song came out fairly quickly. That was one of those gifts from the muses, that song.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. That's an important message in that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, I don't know what kind of vibe we're going to get on this one. This is on Sweet Old Religion. This is a band track. I'm pretty sure it's John Ram playing drums. The Salesman.
Oh, I wrote that after we were driving on tour, and I saw a billboard with this man looking at a TV very sadly, and all of a sudden this whole picture came into my head about this story about just feeling like you're going crazy with all the information that's coming at you all the time. And trying to bring it back around to, like, how do you ground yourself in this crazy day and age? And love, love, love. That's it. Yeah. But yeah, John is playing drums on that. And oh man, I mean, John's amazing. He comes in and plays the new record, just back to the new record that will be coming out in June. We have a friend playing like ragtime piano on 4 of the tracks as well. My sister comes and sings on one of the tracks, which is a pretty cool experience for me because I have a very, very musical family. And my sister, some of your listeners would be familiar with Maren Patnod. She's a well-known singer and musician, folk musician in Vancouver. And then John plays percussion on a bunch, and really stripped down, amazing, give the man, a snare and a kick, and just unbelievable the things that John can do. So yeah, but yes, he's playing percussion on The Salesman.
Yeah, the paranoia of like the guy on the TV is talking to me, the information, that kind of themes, they've only become more relevant in the years since release.
Right? Isn't that crazy? Like these things that have become such a noxious part of our culture, but we don't necessarily know how to shift that and how to change it in ourselves and in our friends, our family, our kids, all of that.
And because you went towards your family, I have to also shout out that around the time I first heard you that year in Mission, all my music school friends were playing in the Cole Patinode band as well.
What? That's oh, so man, we're doing old family hour. So that's my brother as well, who is an incredible guitar player and singer. As oh, that's really neat that that's your friends that playing in the band with him. Were they on the record that he made?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's a great record.
Great record.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, continuing. Now we are at, in terms of albums, we are at A Wanderer, I'll Stay. And I think, again, because of this timing, for some reason, I don't know whether you'll wish it was a different one or not, or maybe you're cool, but this is probably the song that I think of first when I think of you guys, which is Lonesome and I'm Going Back Home.
Oh, I love that song. I still sing that song in sets quite often, actually. Oh, I wrote that song. It's a funny song. It's a series of snapshots from different people's lives that I was reading about or thinking about or hearing about from those people directly. And it all, the theme in all of it was loneliness and I give up in all of those. And then I started being like, well, I don't feel that way. So how can I incorporate these stories into this into this song? Ironically, the directions are wrong in the song. So there's a lonely line of cars heading home, rising east towards the setting sun. And I have a bit of a, so I'm never sure what the right words are when I sing that song. It's a little bit of a crapshoot, to be totally honest, about what direction I'm going to sing. And it's like this secret joke between Jason and I where he'll just look at me sometimes and just shake his head. Anyways, yeah. Yeah.
Now we've got an instrumental. It is the only one that I happen to have picked here, although I could have definitely picked more. And when I was kind of listening through, I found some other tunes that I particularly liked that I tossed into one of my playlists so I can keep hearing them. But this is one from Long Gone Out West Blues, and it's Lost Lula.
Oh, man. Okay. Hang on one second. I'm going to take one step back and go back to Lonesome and I'm Going Back Home.
Yeah.
And I just remembered something about that song. I wrote that song completely in my head, all the vocal parts. And usually Jason and I don't work that way. Usually I'll bring songs to him and then he's got this incredibly unique sense of harmonic structure because he didn't study music ever at all. It's all intuition. He doesn't do theory. He doesn't do all of those kind of things. It's everything, there's a certain grounding and he can speak some musical language, but it's almost all by intuition and by ear and by what works aesthetically for him, sonically, aesthetically. And so that song, Lonesome and I'm Going Back Home, I had the entire thing arranged in my head. It all was very clear to me what the whole thing, and so I had to come in and boss him around and be like, no, you're not allowed to do anything different that you want to. You have to do these vocal parts that I have written in my head. So it's always interesting to deviate from, like, to do all these different relationships with your musical partners. Anyways, I just want to go that. So yeah. Lost Lula is a trip of a song. So we actually just released, I don't know if you saw, but just released a new version of Lost Lula called Lost Lula Redux, which is a bit of a big deal for us. So Lost Lula, what year is Long Gone Out West Blues? I want to say 2013 was when we originally released Lost Lula. So now it's 2026. And we've been playing Lost Lula at many shows. It continues to be a regular part of our repertoire. And Lost Lula is this tune that Jason wrote for a dog named Lula that he had when him and I first met. It was a yellow lab golden retriever, and she was a total nut job of a dog who loved Jason. In her mind, the hierarchy of the family was Jason, Lula, and then I was somewhere down here that she tolerated me. But she disappeared. She was stolen from us while Jason and I were first meeting, and or like courting early, right before we were married. And she ended up in Vermont. And we got her back and moved up to British Columbia with her, then moved up to Horsefly with her, and then she disappeared again. So Lula had a quite a story life, and I actually just wrote the whole full story out for the first time. I'd never done that before. So if anybody wants to go and read it, it is on our Instagram page under the release of Lost Lula. So it was originally a clawhammer tune, and we recorded it on a steel-strung banjo as a clawhammer, and Jason played it as a clawhammer tune. It was the first banjo tune that he ever finished, that he wrote, and it's morphed over the years in all these different tunings, all these different banjo approaches. And the favorite way that we have to play it now is he plays it 3-finger style with no picks, so bare fingers on nylon-strung banjo, and we stepped the tuning down 3 steps, so from F down to D. And so it's much more comfortable for me to play on guitar. It's just got this resonance. You know, F is always a little tight and a little, it's got a resonance to it that can put an edge on things. D seems like a little bit more of a big warm hug, almost like, you know, how B flat feels like a big warm hug a lot of the time. And yeah, so then we sat and we recorded it and just recently released Lost Lula Redux. So that tune, I mean, geez, I was listening, somebody sent me this morning, a Japanese couple playing it on banjo and harp. You know, we've heard, I can't even tell you how many different versions of Lost Lula people have sent us over the years, that, you know, banjo teachers playing it, people walking down the aisle getting married to it, graduations, memorials. It has, like, that tune has legs, and it is amazing to see all the different places that tune has gone. It's very special for us, actually. It's very, very special.
You're seeing the other side of the process by which a lot of people like you or us learn all the other tunes that are common in the repertoire. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so when you have something that ends up being like part of the social fabric of music, that's very neat. And, you know, when you get a tune where someone was like, oh, I thought that was a traditional tune, that's cool.
Around the time of his latest record release and the show, I did this with John Reichman, and so of course we talked about that with his famous tune.
Yeah, the Salt Spring. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So John, have played with John a lot over the years, and I feel very honored to call him a friend because he's such an incredible player, incredible tunesmith. This magnificent human.
Okay, we got one more, so we're gonna go to a passing glance. And what I liked about this one, when I was thinking about which track to pick, was I went and I looked at the screenshot on your Bandcamp of the liner notes page, and on that album you added in like additional stuff, like underneath each song, and almost like just a line that pointed to the theme of it or something. And so I was kind of thinking about those, and I went to this one where that line said, folks doing what they can to get by no matter what life throws at them. And so that's Dad's song.
Oh man, that's awesome. I wrote that song for my dad, and the chorus, and I lost more today than I did 30 years ago. And I have more today than I did 30 years ago. My dad is this lovely human, and somehow or another, my dad has been my biggest muse. It's crazy to me how many songs I've written thinking about him. There's more on the new record. I'd say on every single record, there's songs inspired by my dad. And one of the coolest things that I watched happen with my dad was to shift from a scarcity mindset, where he was always thinking about what he didn't have, to an abundance mindset, where he was excited and grateful for the things that he did have. And that's such a huge shift to make in your life, you know, at an older age. That is a huge shift to make. And it was one of the most beautiful things to watch him do. And I think that he's also an unbelievably quirky, wonderful, strange, lived a very interesting life, done a lot of weird stuff kind of guy. So he's just fun to write songs about. So, but yeah, that's the only one that's so abruptly and obviously titled, Dad's song.
Yeah. That was fun. I appreciated that a lot. Is there anything else that's on your mind that you either wanted to shout out or point toward before we wrapped here?
No, that was a really neat little journey. Thanks for that. It's interesting. It's always interesting to have to not to have to, but to think about songs. We've been recording for a long time now. And we make a lot of records, for a lot of years. We released a record every 2 years. And we've slowed down now, only releasing the last few records every 4 years, which feels much more doable because it's a behemoth labor of love putting out a record. It's a ton of things. So it's really neat to think about all these songs that are written over the years too.
Well, on top of all your multi-Juno winning, multi-Canadian Folk Award winning, accolades, we are grateful that you do that. So thank you. And we look forward to hearing you here in Port Moody later in this month of April. Thanks, Pharis.
Thank you. Yeah, we can't wait to be there. We're really honored to be closing out this season and just really excited to come and play this music for people. We love it so much and it feels so good inside of us playing it and singing and just being out in the world. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing everyone.